Okay, so today we're going to learn about how the position of the Earth, Moon, and Sun create different phases of our Moon. So this goes with learning target 23. Explain ways the position of the Earth, Sun, and Moon create a different picture of our Moon in the night sky. Okay, the Moon is what we call the Earth's natural satellite. The Moon rotates on its axis and revolves around the Earth every 29.5 days, so that's our month. It has craters because there's no erosion or weathering due to no atmosphere. So without an atmosphere, we can't have wind erosion. So that's why we still see all the moon's craters. Okay, the moon, when it rotates on its axis, it does this every 27.3 days, which is equal to the same amount of time it takes for the moon to revolve around the Earth. So the moon's rotation equals the moon's revolution. So what that means is that we see the same side of the moon always faces the Earth. We never see the other side of the moon. Sometimes we call that the dark side of the moon because we never see it. One of the cool things about our moon is it helps stabilize our tilt. So the tilt of the Earth's axis is at 23.5 degrees. The moon helps keep that stable so it doesn't wobble as much. Okay, so this is a animation that's showing you why we only see one side of the moon. So because because the moon rotates on its axis the same length of time it takes to go around the Earth, that's why we only see one side of the moon. And this animation kind of takes a while, but if you'll notice, we just see that same lighted side of the moon because it's rotating at the same speed on its axis as it is revolving around the Earth. Okay, the moon seems to shine because its surface reflects sunlight. So the moon doesn't actually produce any light. It's just reflecting the sunlight that it receives from our sun. We receive a lot more sunlight reflected from our moon. So our moon actually reflects some of that sunlight onto the Earth. Okay, so now we're going to get into the meat of the notes today. We're going to talk about the moon phases. The moon phases depend on the position of the moon, earth, and sun, and I'm abbreviating to make it a little bit quicker. So we know that the moon rotates. It rotates counterclockwise around Earth. This is really important. If you look at this picture right here, the moon is rotating counterclockwise around Earth. No matter which side the sun is on, it's always going to rotate the same way. That's really important when we start talking about moon phases. Okay? So we're going to start looking at different moon phases. So, did not mean to do that at all. Oh, I don't know why it keeps moving like that. Stop. Okay, so this website's also linked to my website. It's a really good website to help show you our moon phases. So this light right here is the light we receive from our sun. So if the moon is in between the sun and the earth, as it is now, the side of the moon that receives light is the side we don't see. So that's why in our night sky we don't see our moon. We call that the new moon phase. Okay, now, and remember the moon rotates counterclockwise around the earth. As the moon starts to rotate, okay, we start to see more of the moon being lighted. That's called waxing, and the shape is a crescent. So this is all a waxing crescent until the moon gets halfway. And this is called the first quarter. And we see, I know this is reversed, but we see half of the moon. So when we see half of the moon, that's first quarter. Then we start going and seeing more of the moon, more than half, and we get a shape that's called a gibbous. It's called a waxing gibbous. It's still waxing because as long as we're seeing more of the lighted side of the moon, that's waxing. Until the moon gets here. When you have the position of the sun, earth, moon, this is what we call the full moon because we see the whole lighted side of the moon. Once the full moon occurs, so When we go from new moon to full moon, we are waxing because we're starting to see more of the lighted side. Waxing crescent, first quarter, waxing gibbous. Once we get to full moon, we're now going to start to see less of the lighted side of the moon. That is called waning. So if you notice here, we're going to have a waning. This shape is a gibbous. So it's called a waning gibbous until we see half of the moon. When we see half of the moon, that's called a third quarter. Then as we go past the third quarter, we're still waning, seeing less of the moon. Then we get into our crescent shape. So that's a waning crescent until back to start and we see a new moon. Which, let me get back over there. Okay, now if you notice down here, it takes roughly 28 days for the moon to make its revolution around the earth. That's roughly our month. So let's go back to our notes. Okay, let's review. Our new moon is when the lighted half faces the sun, so we see dark. So there's two positions that the new moon can be in. When the sun is on the left side, the moon is in between the earth. Well, sometimes we're on the other side of the sun because we revolve around the sun. So when we revolve around the sun, it's still the same position, sun, moon, earth. So when the moon is in between the sun and the earth, we're in a new moon phase. When more of the lighted side is being seen, so when we're going from the new moon to the full moon, we are waxing. The moon is waxing as it travels from new moon to full moon phase. Then when you get to the full moon phase, all the moon's surface reflects light. The two positions are sun, earth, moon, or moon, earth, sun. Waning, you see less of the lighted side. The moon will be waning when it goes from a full moon to a new moon. Wrong one. Okay, so I wanted to show you this because now this one, if you notice the difference between these two, this one the sun is on this side. Well, when the earth revolves around the sun, we sometimes get on the other side of the sun. The moon is still revolving around us. So I wanted to show you what it looks like when the sun's on the other side. So notice, sun, moon, earth. The moon is receiving sunlight on this side, the side we don't see, so that is our new moon. Whenever the moon is in between the sun and the earth, that is the new moon phase. Now remember, when it's on this side, the moon is still rotating counterclockwise around the earth. So, it's still going to start to move. Okay, this is the waxing crescent because we're going from new moon to full moon. So we're waxing because we're seeing more of the lighted side. The shape over here is crescent, so it's waxing crescent. Then we get to the first quarter. This side of the moon, we're seeing half of the moon, so that is called first quarter. Okay, we are still waxing because we're still going toward a full moon, but now this shape is a gibbous, so this is a waxing gibbous. Then here, when we have sun, earth, moon, we now can see the sun is going to light this whole side of the moon that we see, so that is our full moon phase. Then because we're going from full moon to new moon, we're going to start to see less of the lighted side, so we're waning. And this first shape is a gibbous. Now one thing I want you to notice, when you, in between the full moon, you've got waxing gibbous up here, waning gibbous here. So the gibbuses are always on the same side. So are the crescents. Waxing crescent up here, waning crescent here. Okay, when we start seeing half of the moon, this is our third quarter. And then we are still seeing less of the moon, so that is a waning crescent. And then back to the new moon. Okay, so when you switch the side of the sun, basically when the sun was over here and the moon was rotating this way, this was the new moon, waxing crescent, first quarter, waxing gibbous, full moon, waning gibbous, third quarter, waning crescent. But when the sun's over here, it reverses. New moon, full moon, first quarter, third quarter, waxing crescent, waxing gibbous, waning crescent. So the way to understand moon phases is if you're looking at where the sun is, think about which side of the moon is receiving the sunlight. And then start rotating the moon and start thinking about which side of the moon is receiving the sunlight. Okay, so when we're going here, it's only hitting a little piece. See that yellow is where the sun is hitting the moon that we see. So that's why we're at the waxing crescent. You're going to get a lot of practice with moon phases. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the last thing, which is the moon's origin. It's the name of the moon's origin is impact theory. So what we believe happened is that Earth collided with a Mars-sized object and a piece broke off and was trapped in the Earth's gravitational pull. Hence, that's our moon. So give you an idea what this looks like. Okay, impact theory, formation of the moon. A Mars-sized object collided with Earth. It sent a lot of debris out into the area around Earth. That debris coalesced into a spinning disk, and that's our moon. All right, now I'm going to show you an animation. Okay, let's see. This is going to show you a little video of how the moon formed. There's the impact. A lot of dust, gas, and sent out into space. A lot of debris starting to coalesce. So the material that was blasted into orbit coalesced and formed our moon. Okay, so hopefully after this little set of notes you can understand the position of the Earth, Sun, and Moon, how it creates our moon phases. Please make sure you can go to my website and you can access these two animations to help you see how the moon's phases change when we change the position of the sun. Okay, this is when the sun is on the left-hand side and our moon phases, and this is when the sun is on the right-hand side of the Earth. So please make sure to review those as well.